Do the musical intro on this show because we're going to get right to it. It's Monday, September 22nd, 2025. This is the Fakeologist Show. We're starting even 1 minute early just so we can get this 1 hour in because Peter, the prophet of fiction, is here. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Fakeologist.
Thank you for allowing us to move your show to one extra day. We appreciate that because we had Silas Speaks and we were talking about Charlie Kirk. It's the story of the week, of the month, maybe of the year. But I wanted to get it in while it was still hot.
Right. It's still on the front page of CNN.com.
Okay. Oh, is that where you go for your information?
And just to see what the rest of the world is thinking about, mostly.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to get right into it. Boris wants to know, what's the topic? The Roman hoax. Oh, should I change the title of the show then?
No, but this is the big book that I'm using for the past few shows, and it's so much information there. We could,
So this is your book title here.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this is your future book, The Roman Hoax.
Yeah.
And your contention is there was no Roman Empire, as
No.
we are told.
Right, nor Greek Empire. And actually, the middle of this book has a little chapter devoted to medieval Scandinavian literature, also fake.
Oh boy! And who faked it? In your estimation?
Hard to put your finger on it, but my finger on it. But I suspect Jesuits, Masons, people who are masters of multiple languages. And have a lot of time on their hands to weave the web.
So most people accept in our community that history is being written in real time. Myths are being spun as we sit here. And then they become solidified in books, in movies, in music,
right,
in literature. And the same thing, it does stand to reason if we interpolate into past history, most likely the same thing was done then
as now, indeed.
As now. Nothing has changed. Nothing new. Nothing's new under the sun.
Yes, they did warn us, although that's also a bit of a simplification. The lies are morphing into different lies. Maybe all this started with the fake, or the fake religion or fake church known as the Catholic Church, with its Jesuits producing massive quantities of literature. Although I suspect, I have to revise what I'm saying, even then they were already done with Christianity, and literature was already, if not obviously, then in a cryptic or subtle way, anti-Christian. And that is my very special take on the Bible, that it was never meant to be promoting Christianity or Judaism. But don't underestimate the gullibility of the people, their willingness to cling to their beliefs. So despite all the contradictions and shocking acts and wars and deaths, somehow people still believe the Bible is God's word. Anyway, that's for future shows, perhaps.
Yeah, there's a lot of people here that are Bible believers, so that'll be tough for
Yes,
them.
I will try to wrest the Bible away from them, and they'll have just God.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Me too. I can even do without God. That's fine too.
I gotcha.
Yeah. I'm quite happy with nature and the intellect and the bodies we were given.
Let's say hi to Nico Traumas in the chat. Linda Curtis. Hello. Boris, of course. Okay, let's get into it. You only got an hour, so let's not waste a minute of
Right.
time.
Okay, good. With my usual sense of irony, creativity, I called my introduction a set of conclusions. As we always write introductions really after we know what we're talking about, after the book is written. There really are conclusions. So, with that, I will begin. The Greek, Roman, and Nordic classics are fakes written as late as the 18th century when public literacy began and ancient and medieval books were created to hide the past, confuse us, stuff our heads with lies, and feed skeptics and truth seekers red herrings and false wisdom. To erase Europe's native past and to deceive us about the methods they used to conquer the world. The world, or word corruptors, invented a word history full of wars and ancient and medieval kingdoms, empires, and dynasties. They also invented ancient and medieval cultures full of religious fanatics, anthropomorphic gods, and oracles. This invention of the past involved the writing of books and scrolls, inscriptions in stone and etched plates, as well as the creation of relief carvings, sculptures, temples, churches, and ruins. Some of these creations were never used and were only created to create the illusion that ancient civilizations existed. Others were used for secret purposes, and when they were abandoned by the world controllers, parts were removed and inscriptions erased, and they were repurposed, given stained glass and painting so that we would believe the false history given to us, and to seduce us into religious belief systems such as Christianity, Hinduism, and Islam. This applies only to the very old cathedrals and churches, which I will discuss, I hope, in the next show with my recent research into the Roman pantheon. It just quite blew my mind how everything made sense finally.
Okay, that sounds
The
good.
creation of fake history and fake cultures has served in part to erase our native past. Our fake history convinces us to believe that native, uncivilized people were warlike, superstitious cannibals. Our lying books tell us that native pre-literate people of Northern and Western Europe were Celts or Druids who practiced cultural cannibalism or ritual cannibalism, while others were violent Vikings who invaded Britain, Visigoths who conquered the British Isles, and Saxons who conquered Britain. The truth is very likely the opposite. Cunning Brits with advanced technologies invaded and conquered Europe and created Rome and many coastal and I believe it's riparian cities. It's on riversides.
Oh, okay. That stands for Riverside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I'll change that to riversides and all this Latin.
I like riparian.
Riparian sounds good.
That's great. That makes you sound smart.
That's always helpful.
Yes, relate. Yeah. It says here it's an adjective related to law. Actually, why does it say law? Related to or situated on the banks of a river. All the riparian states must sign an agreement. So I guess it's mainly used in law.
Okay.
That's interesting. Or ecology relating to wetlands adjacent to rivers and streams.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Carry on.
And they created these cities to be the centers from which they launched their campaigns to conquer the interior of Europe. As we've seen in maps too, that most, if nearly all star forts, something that might be new to you, also,
Yeah,
they are they are on the coasts. Basically, all of them, almost all. And I think they were launching pads for larger invasions and operations going inland, perhaps with.
I never heard of star forts, but here's a map of Canada on my screen. People can see my screen in the
Right.
small. And we have star forts. I never heard of that in my life. We got one
Right. And that's part of
in Kingston. Yeah, Fort Erie in Fort Erie, Ontario. Fort Frederick in Kingston. Fort George, Niagara on the Lake.
yes.
Fort Henry. So they're star forts.
Yes,
Interesting.
and they're part of the Tartarian narrative that is quite popular.
Is that BS?
It's
There's a star fort. I never heard of
a
that.
lot of half truths, I would say, at best. Quite naive about what the purpose was, and the popular narrative is that very good, advanced people ruled Tartaria, and they were somehow overthrown by Jesuits, Masons, and so on. But for me, it's just a continuation of the same old. So the reset. It was a reset that happened with the Industrial Revolution. All right. Can skip the next paragraph. Classic scholars. I hope no one is a fan of scholars, the conventional kind. I've been there, heard them, left them long ago. The conclusions and analyses presented in this book were only possible because I worked outside academia without any pressure to conform to academic consensus, without any pressure to produce regular articles, and therefore with the freedom to spend 3 decades developing, changing, and refining my understanding. Academics, in contrast, spend their careers sitting on the throne of accepted ideas and rarely, if ever, alter their opinions. They certainly are not likely to question the authenticity and morality of the classics and medieval literature they teach, because their jobs and their pride are predicated on the belief that such books are authentic. They will fight to the death to resist and deny whatever I'm saying here, everything I'm saying here. Nevertheless, even scholars know that at least a few ancient forgeries exist. Wikipedia's extremely incomplete list of forgeries includes onomacritus,
Onomacritus
or
or
critus,
critus.
maybe.
Onomacritus, yeah.
The forger of prophecies ascribed to the ancient poet Musaeus. Septimus, a 3rd century AD forger of a Latin translation of an eyewitness account of Dictys
and Crita.
Creta, yeah, of the Trojan War. Pseudo-Dionysius, the 5th to 6th century Syrian mystical forger who claimed to be a disciple of Paul the Apostle of Christ. Absurdly, Abelard expressed doubts about pseudo-Dionysius. That means an astounding 500 years passed before anyone noticed that pseudo translates into fake or false. And Dionysius was a Roman god, not a Christian mystic. The irony, of course, is that although everything is fake and everything is fake and imaginary, the forgers are themselves forgeries of fakes who never existed, or I should maybe simplify that, are themselves fakes who never existed. Musaeus, Dictys of Crete, and the Trojan War and Paul the Apostle are all fakes without originals, pure imagination. So yeah, that little red herring, actually, or that criticism or that suggestion that forgeries exist actually serves to reinforce the idea that others are original. Yeah.
Real. Yeah, others are real. Yeah. So here are the forgeries, but everything else is real. But you're saying, in actuality, everything is part of the story, the fiction.
Indeed. Lucian, who allegedly lived in the 2nd century AD, whispered a warning. His satire, The Ignorant Book Collector, concerns gullible artifact collectors who buy fakes. Again, ironically, even his warning about forgeries is fake. No market for art and literature existed during his alleged lifetime, nearly 2,000 years ago. So no market for forgeries existed either. Besides, if Lucian lived in the 2nd century At that time, Rome was busy martyring Christians for rejecting the Roman religion. But Lucian freely mocked the Roman gods in Dialogues of the Gods. Can an intolerant, tyrannical ruling class permit mockeries of them to be published without consequences for the author? Meanwhile, they're killing Christians, allegedly. The enormous and shadowy world of literary forgery continues in our own time, as many of our reporters, authors, singers, directors, actors, and artists pretend to be free minds, but are actually oath-bound Freemasons, intelligence agents, and anti-intelligence agents. And consider this claim made by an expert at Sotheby's, the world's premier auction house of ancient artifacts. 99.9% of what you see in the market is fake. Published in Al Jazeera, China faking it.
So they blaming it on China?
I guess so. That's the hub. Who knows if it's really true?
Well, yeah, China to this day is always accused of stealing Western patents and just creating them without any royalties and reducing the cost, etc.
Right. And perhaps this claim should also be qualified by the remark that in many cases, what they're faking doesn't have.
It's also fake.
Yes, right.
They're faking fakes.
I just came out of Cancun, where they have some Mayan
ruins.
Artifacts. Well, the ruins are real enough, but they're not Mayan as we understand them. They're probably built by these same people who built the pyramids and our.
So they don't go back hundreds or thousands of years, is what you're saying?
No way.
They would have been dustified by then.
Maybe. Yeah,
wouldn't stand.
And it's this obsession with building with monuments with rocks. I don't think that just arose spontaneously among ordinary people. That's something very unusual.
Well, is there any practicality to these pyramids anyway?
Yeah.
It's not like you could hold a ceremony or a fish market in them.
No. I have watched a few videos, and well, there are different theories. In any case, I don't see any good evidence that Mayan culture is ever existed, perhaps ever. It's just mostly fiction. Of course, indigenous people existed, and they were given this name and given a fake history. And anyway, that's
now they're being elevated to the top. What could the reason for that be?
As in, you're referring also to Canada and the indigenous.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a worldwide phenomenon. It's a United Nations program plan. So they're being raised to the top as an excuse, I guess, to steal everything and create stakeholder capitalism.
Create enough guilt feeling for us to
just give everything up. Just give it all back. Give up your land.
Okay. Fakery rules the online social world too. Presently, millions of online comments are written by chatbots, while news articles, reports, essays, and books are being written by computer programs and AI programmed to lie and to regurgitate lies. But were the Greek classics faked? Did Romans have the opportunity and power to do this? Assuming Romans are responsible. Even according to conventional history, Rome had the following opportunities to steal and corrupt all things Greek. In 197 BC, Greece's Philip V was defeated by the Romans at this place. In 168 BC, the Romans did. Do you want to try that place?
Kenoskephalia. Skephali.
Yeah, it sounds a bit phallic.
I never heard of it.
I don't know.
Phalli. Yeah.
The Romans defeated Perseus, also the name of a god, I think.
Perseus.
Thank you. and the Greek Antigonid dynasty. Should we call that Antigonad, more phallic stuff?
Oh yeah, the gametes.
In 149 BC, the Romans annexed Macedonia, Greece. In 86 BC, Roman general Sulla burned Athens and stole books from the Lyceum. In 30 BC, the Romans conquered all of Greece, and who knows what they took. Much later, and perhaps more plausibly, in 1204 AD, the Roman Catholics of the Fourth Crusade took the allegedly Greek city of Constantinople, burnt its library, and looted the city. There we have a library again.
Why do they burn libraries? Is that just to control knowledge?
It's to create the illusion that libraries existed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And of course,
So you're saying, because they always say all that knowledge is lost.
yeah, Alexandria. What? Right.
And then what does that mean? When the knowledge is lost, they have to rediscover everything?
I guess so. Or, yeah. Doesn't always make much sense to me. But it certainly supports the idea that literacy and libraries once existed, long before they really did. How could one country be invaded 4 times by the same nation? It's the same absurdity we are told about Rome being sacked repeatedly. Surely, after the first victory in 197 BC, Rome would have conquered all of Greece and annexed it. And apparently, Greece never counterattacked the Roman Republic. This is also absurd. Reminds me also of not quite the same, but Napoleon walking all over Europe and into Russia, then being defeated by the English. But France remains untouched and is allowed to carry on much as usual. Doesn't make much sense. Regarding the historian's claim that Crusaders burnt a Greek library in 1204, that is also absurd. Libraries didn't exist until centuries later, as I maintain, when public education created a literate public. The counter-argument that nobles wrote literature for nobles is also absurd. They were too busy enjoying their power over us, children and women. They were too busy admiring their architecture, clothes, technologies, and other forms of false wealth to need. They were too busy to enjoy that, too busy enjoying this stuff to need stories about the past and silly love and epic poems. And they were too busy enjoying their evil, intricate rituals they held in their satanic temples to need silly tragedies. And they were too busy laughing at us to need comedies.
That laughing is spelled Laugh.
That's true. I do that systematically in another book. My only comedy.
Oh, that's just a comedic insert.
And it's my way of saying, let's fix the English language, please.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Too many phonetic absurdities.
I get you.
All right. Do we have any evidence that Greek literature was invented by criminal minds? Let me answer that question with the rhetorical question. Does ancient Greek literature, have wise men and women? Does any ancient Greek character speak or write about the tribal wisdom of raising children communally, about not subjecting land to overgrazing and clear cutting and other practices that lead to desertification, about the dangers of submitting to the authority of strangers, about honesty, about the goodness of the land, about the temptations of the marketplace, about the horrors of war and violence? Basically none. Instead, the WC's wisest man is Socrates, that disgusting urbanite who espoused the opposite of what I described, and whose greatest wisdom was, I know nothing, and the unexamined life is not worth living. Neither statement constitutes wisdom. The first is an admission of ignorance, and the second is advice to think about one's life, which at best could lead to wisdom, the wisdom Socrates did not share, because he did not have it. More on Socrates maybe in another show. Plato and Aristotle.
Mhm. They're all phony guys.
Absolutely.
Phony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And very supportive of the class system. All right. Greek and Roman myths, epics, and dramas are populated with superstitious, violent, classist, sexist, and tyrannical gods and men. By portraying paganism as a culture of gods, tyrants, and superstitious people, the world culture corruptors prevented us from knowing our native ancestors. Scholars who criticize the classics are rare, but Professor David Charles Alman Hillman concluded that some Greek mystical traditions actually justify, or at least normalize, rape, incest, pedophilia, and human sacrifice cults. That is a shocking conclusion to voice in the halls of academia, but it misses the point that all ancient Greek literature is a pile of lies and immorality. Um, as we, as I revealed to some extent in previous shows. Nevertheless, Professor Hillman's criticism can help us free ourselves from the spell of literature. If we follow his example, we will discover that such literature supports slavery, classism, sexism, expansionist wars, and other forms of foolishness. For evidence, consider that Ares, the god of war, glorifies the need for war. Ganymede, the household slave of the gods, legitimizes slavery. Zeus's power justifies contempt for democracy and egalitarianism. Aphrodite legitimizes treating women as sex objects. Athena, a goddess of wisdom, shared no wisdom with anyone. But is all of classic literature a pack of lies? As usual, the truth was whispered. The ancient, quote unquote, author Hesiod hinted that Greek literature is a pack of lies because he claimed that the muses who inspired authors to write are liars. Quote, the muses who sing on Olympus know how to tell numerous lies which seem to be truthful. The Theogony.
Is that a book or
Yes, a
something?
very short book. He supposedly wrote 2 short books, just as Homer wrote 2 long books, and the Bible has 2 long sections. Maybe 2 is a basic number for the power.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
duality.
duality, and the word double is related to the Latin words for devil.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Diablo, double. All right. And all those double numbers, 1133, 666, well, triple. But if scholars would clean their ears and hear Hesiod's whisper, perhaps they might start doubting the wisdom of teaching and preaching so-called ancient literature, medieval literature, and perhaps any literature. But in the meantime, at Princeton University, the classics department encourages students to think the classics must be understood according to the principles of rhetoric. For example, to praise, inspire, or entertain. What is praiseworthy? What is inspiring? What is entertaining about classics full of monsters, wars, domestic violence, petty domestic spats, incest, lust, and greed? I want to know. Presumably, some respected scholars of ancient Greece arranged The Making of a Myth, a 2022 exhibition at London's British Library. It treated Alexander the
Yeah.
Great as someone about whom we have no truths and no certainty. That outraged a naive reviewer at The Guardian, a popular British news rag. He called the classics great treasures of world culture. That doesn't really deny the possibility that it could all be, we don't know anything about them. Anyway, apparently, the reviewer is certain that the classics are treasures. The British Library would agree with that opinion, but possibly disagree about details. So the overarching myth that Greek history and literature deserve our attention and respect remains alive and well. Somehow, even though Homer gave us monsters, Sophocles, defended sacrificing children, and Plato wrote that some people are born to be shoemakers, scholars continue to respect the classics.
So he's just enforcing the class myth.
Plato is, for sure. Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, if you scroll up a bit when you said lust and greed,
Yeah.
it reminded me of a Supertramp song because I'm binging on Supertramp since Rick Davies died. And one of the lines is, "Who are these men of lust, greed, and glory? Rip off the masks and let's see. But that's not right. Oh no, what's the story? But there's you and there's me. That can't be." It's just maybe he's sort of talking similar to what you're saying.
Yeah, in a less direct way.
Yeah, it's just a poem, of course. That's their title track, "Crime of the
I
Century."
remember that album.
Such a great song, such a great album, such a great band.
Yeah.
I'll play it at the end.
All right. Presumably, scholars know that the gods, or actually, let's delete that, that gods, goddesses, titans, and monsters of the classics do not exist and did not exist, one assumes. But in a stupendous display of contradiction, they don't say the classics are works of superstition and classism. Instead, they believe Greco-Roman culture represents the highest achievement of our ancestors. Their leading reason for this absurd opinion is their opinion that Athens, Greece, was the birthplace of democracy. Rubbish. Election privileges for the 1% and debates among the ruling elite do not a democracy make. The classical Athenian model of democracy for the few does not represent the birth of democracy. Instead, it represents the decline of democracy. Older, more primitive peoples enjoyed more democracy because they had no governments controlling them and writing their laws. In tribal world,
They're group decisions, more
very
communal.
much. Chiefs were mostly symbolic if they existed in the distant past. Just kind of organizers of the people, not dictators. Organizers of discussions, I suppose. All right. According to historians, ancient Greece was defeated by the Roman Republic and presumably by the Catholic knights known as the Crusaders. But what do we know about the victors of wars? We easily understand the maxim that history is written by the victors. Therefore, we can't trust, at the very least, we can't trust the Greek literature. Unfortunately, according to the ultra-naive words of Professor Michael Petruzzelli, the Catholic Church almost single-handedly saved the intellectual inheritance of ancient Greece and other pre-Christian European civilizations, well, mostly Rome and perhaps the Scandinavian classics. Is he mentally challenged? Why would victors preserve the culture of the people they supposedly beat into submission? Such an act would be unprecedented. Nevertheless, in Michael's words, manuscripts, copies, and translations of scripture, the Greek and Latin fathers, church histories, and documents from church councils, as well as perhaps classical Greek and Roman writings from non-Christian sources, formed a valuable library of Western faith and culture, which was left at the Catholic monastery founded by Cassiodorus, which endured at least until after his death in 583 AD. It would be reasonable to conjecture that at least some of Cassiodorus' library may have found its way into the monasteries of the Benedictine order. We should emphasize, however, that the Benedictine monks were trained in classical Latin, but not in Greek. The works which they would preserve and copy in their scriptoria would be those of the Western Church fathers and Roman writers. And I guess someone else took care of the Greek classics. Michael's opening phrase, copies and translations of, announces his astonishing belief that the megalomaniacal Catholic Church was and is kindly working to preserve other cultures. How is such naivety possible? The church reputedly drowned and burned pagans and persecuted Jews and Muslims. It was single-mindedly devoted to destroying other cultures. So we're told.
Yeah.
But
That makes more
Catholic,
sense.
pardon?
It makes more sense, yeah.
Yeah,
That they would not preserve any of that. They'd get rid of it.
yes, right. If conventional history is true, then it's full of contradictions, and that's what happens when you lie about everything. But Catholic scholars conveniently exempt some ancient European cultures. Yeah, the church somehow decided to preserve Roman classics, even though they're full of, as I mentioned, murder, child sacrifice, pedophilia, and so on. Michael's ludicrous naivety is shared by many scholars of the classics. Consider the words of Christopher Dawson. It was only because of the church, and particularly by the monks, that the tradition of classical culture and the writings of classical authors, the Latin classics, were preserved. Catholic monastic schools and libraries and scriptoria became the chief organs of higher intellectual culture in Western Europe. From his book, Religion and the Rise of Western Culture. Christopher Dawson also espoused the laughable belief that the Catholic Church worked tirelessly to preserve his beloved ancient European civilization. I should emphasize non-Christian. All right, the story of the preservation of the Greek and Roman classics is even more laughable than I've just indicated. According to scholars, the classics were saved and transmitted back to the West, meaning the church, by Muslims who conquered Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, otherwise known as the Eastern Roman Empire. Is this credible? According to historians, Roman armies and Roman Catholic crusaders walked over Byzantium, but somehow they did not notice any Greek literature worth preserving. Only centuries later, Muslims found both Greek and Roman classics, despite not reaching Rome, and they preserved what they found and kindly gave these treasures to the Roman Catholic Church, not to the Greeks. Obviously, this is absurdity piled on absurdity. Again, the Muslims also are were supposedly on a rampage, destroying all other cultures but their own, but somehow decided to save the Greek and Roman classics and other classics. So, the classics were allegedly rediscovered and revived after 1400, shortly after the invention of the movable type printing press. I don't believe it. You know, we're getting closer to the modern era, closer to the truth, but 1400 I don't think is close enough yet.
Mm-hmm.
The classics were written for us, to deceive us, and public literacy didn't start until the late 1700s. Do scholars even know why the classics are called the classics? The word classic originates from the 1610s and means belonging to the highest class, from Latin classicus, meaning relating to the classes of the Roman people. From this, we can infer that the classics are classist literature and that the classes we find in schools are designed to preserve the class system.
Yeah, that is interesting, that word class. Who's ever given that thought?
Uh-huh. And why? Yeah, you mean in the school system?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Classroom. Yeah.
And it works. It creates unconsciously the belief among students that if you're older, you're better than the younger ones. And that's not how we related to our what's the word for opposite of elders, to younger children. In a more organic and natural setting, children and adults, everyone was involved in teaching and learning. It was very organic. It's not structured by age. So you would never have the illusion that just because you're older, you're smarter, or maybe not the illusion. You would never have the feeling and the belief. But I think it's very damaging for society and for children to grow up that way, not helping each other, but just having this feeling that you're superior to younger students and inferior to older students. All right, we have lots of time. Good.
Well, you're doing well.
Thanks. The global literary conspiracy theory. Was all ancient and medieval literature faked by a secret arm of Western Europe's aristocracy in the 1700s? If you reject this seemingly outrageous conspiracy possibility, then you must believe that around 800 BC, or 2400 years before the first novels were written, a wandering minstrel named Homer decided that folk tales were not for him, and without any formal training that we know of, he composed in his head 2 epic poems totaling nearly 28,000 lines, approximately 200,000 words each, enough to fill over 600 pages in his head without paper and pen. Even if Homer had paper and ink, the question remains, why did he torment himself by writing his story in dactylic hexameter when the oral tradition was prose? Of course, songs existed, but Homer's epic poems are not songs. Oh, obviously, Homer's story is illogical and implausible. Scholars generally assume that books are written by independent and intellectually free people who enjoy or enjoyed freedom of speech. That is naive. Authors who do not belong to secret societies have strong economic motives that compel them to waste little time thinking and revising. Moreover, writing and books are inventions, and we should always remember that almost every invention stems from military necessity. For example, we invented metallurgy for weapons. Supposedly, again, I might have to revise that because this is based on the belief that conventional war is the secret to building empires. Masonry for castles, the wheel and axle for transporting supplies, and writing for enabling militaries or intelligence agents of the ruling class to communicate their intelligence across long distances and in a manner no peasant could understand. Books and literacy was invented and developed by the world conquerors, just as the internet was invented and developed by them. In fact, its development was probably funded by the Pentagon because that military agency has an enormous budget.
Yeah. Or DARPA. Department of Defense or Department of War now. Yeah, DARPA.
Okay.
Yeah, Pentagon. The Pentagon is good. That's the root, I would say, of the funding.
Yeah, the head of the dragon or the head of heads.
Yes.
This global literary conspiracy theory is supported by the fact that ancient literature never criticizes the ruling class, nor does it ever suggest that the ruling class in general might be corrupt and immoral. Because we are living with a global literary conspiracy, the names of authors are always fake, pseudonyms for anonymous people. Homer, Hippocrates, Plato, Euripides, Seneca, Martial, Isaiah, Plutarch, Tacitus, thank you. Shakespeare and other authors are not people but invented names. And this practice continues. Nowadays, much of our news is written by anonymous algorithmic programs, CIA and MI6 agents pretending to be journalists.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. I'm going to get a quote about the CIA later or present. In 1977, Joseph Alsop, one of America's leading syndicated columnists, wrote a very long article that claimed that according to documents on file at CIA headquarters, he was one of more than 400 American journalists who secretly carried out assignments for the Central Intelligence Agency. Who was Joseph Alsop? He was a Washington insider with family connections to President Roosevelt. Therefore, whatever information he shared, we should assume that it is incomplete and that it understates the anti-intelligence function of the media. His name also begs reflection. It is startlingly similar to the name of a supposedly ancient Greek storyteller, Aesop. As usual, experts are not certain about the origin of that name. Perhaps the CIA gave Joseph Alsop the assignment of exposing the CIA's role in the media because his name should serve as a hint that he is a storyteller, like Aesop, not a journalist.
Well, they always say journalists tell a story. It has to be compelling.
Yeah, that's a strong hint, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Let's
they have to get the story. Remember, that's the line. Get this. Go get the story.
right. Um, story,
So
interesting word
much,
too.
so much truth in the language we use. We don't even think about it.
You know, um, we have here in Mexico and I think it's also in the States, a junk food company called Bimbo.
Oh, yeah, stupid.
Oh gosh, and yeah, you have to be stupid, of course, to eat that food. But
Yeah, it's probably
no
deep
one,
fried in seed oil.
yeah. Um, and we have a lovely bank here called Santander. It has Satan in it, and its logo is a flame.
Mm.
So they never tire of playing with words, leaving us little hints. Let's savor one of Alsop's fables by omission, published in Rolling Stone magazine in October 20, 1977. The agency's dealings, meaning the CIA, with the press began during the earliest stages of the Cold War. Alan
Dulles, yeah,
Dulles, okay,
yeah.
who became director of the CIA in 1953, sought to establish a recruiting and cover capability within America's most prestigious journalistic institutions. He's recruiting journalists um, by operating under the guise of accredited news correspondents. Dulles believed CIA operatives abroad would be accorded a degree of access and freedom of movement unobtainable under almost any other type of cover. All right, so they're doing good by pretending to be journalists. They're serving their country.
That's why journalists are always at risk in these countries because they get found out
Uh
that they're spies.
huh. Well, that is one rich high fructose dung pile. The opening statement creates the illusion that the CIA had dealings with the press, as if prior to the Cold War, the press had no secret intelligence agents operating within its ranks, as if it was pure beforehand, right?
Mm-hmm.
That might be true because the CIA did not exist before the Cold War, but let's not forget that the agents of a certain secretive society controlled the media. And there must have been some other spy agency, plus the British, by which I mean they are working to prevent us from being intelligence operations. Or worse, not intelligence, but outelligence, people who tell the truth to others. I don't know what I'm doing there, really. Maybe I'll delete that.
Okay.
Secondly, the CIA director Dulles claimed that the CIA simply wanted to use the social credit and respect of US media giants to help CIA agents gain access to places and people from which they might otherwise be barred. True and false. Foreign politicians and business elites are installed and controlled by the WC, so they hardly need help monitoring them. And foreign puppets plotting to rebel or harboring resentment would never tell an American journalist anything that might upset his controllers. This silly story, repeated by Alsop, is designed to conceal from us the fact that the CIA media primarily works to make Americans ignorant, not to find out, discover truths, political facts abroad, although they may be helping to make foreigners ignorant too. We're in the global
Mhm.
society now.
Well, yeah, that's what the Smith-Mundt Act was all about.
Building the global empire. Is that it?
Well, it was just about propaganda and Voice of America spreading lies to
Okay, yeah.
outside the US, and then because of the internet, those lies came right back into the US immediately because of the power of immediate transmission of information, so they just repealed the act because they figured it's a wasting of time to say we're not propagandizing the US because they were indirectly because of the internet.
Right.
So they just repealed it saying, "Well, no point in this because the all our lies are coming right back into the country immediately anyway." Whereas before the internet, it was less likely or much more difficult.
And maybe that also relates well to Obama's legislation or legalizing of uh, propaganda in America.
Well, that's what the repeal was. The repeal of the Smith-Mundt Act made it illegal. The Smith-Mundt Act made it illegal to propagandize Americans directly. But because they were getting it indirectly during the internet time, they just repealed it because they
Yeah,
just said,
it's
"Well,
okay.
it's not relevant now because they're gonna get propagandized
But
anyway."
yeah, but it creates the illusion that the propaganda is not also coming from within the US.
Mhm. Well, now they're just yeah, now it's just they're just admitting that
It's coming in from abroad. Yeah.
right.
All right.
But they weren't admitting that it was actually probably made to be consumed later by Americans because they would probably get the word eventually, but now they get it immediately. Anyway, it is
Uh-huh.
confusing.
The lies, yeah, it's the web of lies gets very complicated. All right. The classics are rarely anonymous, and the pseudonyms assigned to the classics are not random. They are often hints or encrypted evidence. For example, we believe Homer was Greek, but let's think about his name. It supposedly means blind singer and hostage. But who would give that name to a child, really? Secondly, the name Homer is rarely or never used in Greece, but it is quite popular in both Latin America and the US and Britain. Coincidentally, the two books credited to Homer concern a man who left his home and struggled to return home. The name seems to be an English pun. Puns are not uncharacteristic of the Homeric text. The Iliad and the Odyssey are full of name puns. Odysseus is the odious one because he lost all his men, cheated on his wife, killed men in darkness, and killed innocent maidens. And the Odyssey is set on and near the sea. Likewise, although Priam means 3 sons, Homer's Priam has 68 sons and 18 daughters, of which a total of 3 became famous. The 2 famous sons bore Western European names, Hector, Spanish, and Paris, French, and the famous daughter Cassandra bore a name that is a variant of Alexandra, another European name. Not necessarily not Greek, I suppose. Uh, the name Cassandra was never popular in Greece, but during the Middle Ages it was common in, drumroll please, England. Hesiod is another special name. It isn't Greek. It sounds like a variation of Hesse, a popular Germanic name from Austria. The Hesses were aristocrats whose family crest bore the image of a sun. Coincidentally, Hesiod's work is full of sun references, all of them kind of silly and if perhaps insulting, if there is such a thing as a sun god, telling us not to make gifts to the sun and so on. I'll speed over that, skip over that. Could Greek,
Got some tips on urination in there.
I
Wow.
know. Uh, Avoid standing upright facing the sun while urinating. But after the sun sets, you should urinate facing east, maybe anticipation of the
Yeah.
sun. Anyway,
Mm.
it's all silliness, but it also has kind of cryptic hints about the Hesses, who, as I said, had the image of a sun in their family crest. Could Greek and Roman classics be written by English and other Northwestern European anti-intelligence agents? Why did my investigation uncover evidence that many words and names in those classics were derived from English and other languages? Could the classics be one facade of the Tower of Babel constructed by the WC to keep us confused? I ask rhetorical questions before the apocalypse, the revelation. All right, we have a little time.
All right.
There's a lot more stuff here about words and Constantinople, two pages.
Okay. You want to finish with this or leave it for next time? Your choice, because you had
Yeah,
great
let me
o'clock.
check my messages. One moment.
I hope everyone's enjoying the show. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't have a message. That means the student will expect me on time. So let's save it for another show.
Okay. That was a
Thank
good
you.
one. I learned a lot.
Wow, it's almost overdosing, but I hope I made it entertaining with my delivery.
Yeah, it was very good. My only thing is the microphone's still a little echoey. It almost would be better if you had a headset because it just makes it a little hard for my ears.
Was it
to
better
hear.
last week?
Well, it might have been. There's still an echo. How close can you get to your mic without it being
Well,
uncomfortable?
I'm
Because
in a different place this week, and I don't have the good mic.
oh, okay, so you're not using the good mic. Okay.
No,
Well, that
I'll
would
be back
explain it.
home next week.
Back in the old days, people used to wear headsets, and they actually sounded better than many. Well, they weren't as good as a real mic, but it did reduce echo and made it much more crisp.
I'll see about.
So even if, yeah, it's the headset with the boom mic. I used to have one all the time before I went and bought a mic, and the boom mic on a headset's only $30 or so it's not too expensive.
A boom mic on a headset.
Well, yeah, it's the mic that comes right around in
yeah,
front of your mouth. It
sure.
sounds, yeah, that's what I mean by a boom
I can
mic.
afford
Yeah.
that. Let's try that.
hmm Let's try that. I noticed some of the better podcasts. People wear those head. They don't look as good in a video, but we don't use video here, so it doesn't matter. But they still sound great.
Maybe I'll do my next ones on my patio. I will get next, maybe before next show.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Yeah, I'll be moving.
That would be good. All right. Well, we did the show a little earlier tonight because we had to rearrange the schedule. Tomorrow, Lynn will be on with Silas from Scotland. Well, we're going to finish with our Charlie or continue on. He has so much material like you on the Charlie Kirk thing that may still be relevant tomorrow. And I think it'll be interesting. I think Unreal was saying that it's all conspiracy candy and we're just gorging on candy, but I find it all pretty interesting. It really illustrates a lot of forethought was put into the story. It's not random. None of this is random.
Yeah,
So it's
I had the same feeling about the Charlie Kirk shows, but upon reflection, I'm also gorging on conspiracy candy in some sense. But I like to think that it is intellectual exercise, not just candy. It's exercising your mind to untangle these lies. And to that, I would add, one day I do wish to focus on other things and have just some land, a garden, and focus on my art. And who knows, grandchildren, that would be amazing. But in the meantime, I don't mind. I wouldn't, it's not always candy. It's thought provoking.
well, it's much more interesting than just the basic humdrum news or history. Like I like your history better than the history we were taught. That's for sure. Way more interesting and way more.
I think you mean by interesting. It's engaging intellectually. You have to put some effort into it.
Well, yeah, because we're decoding the
Yes.
stories. And that's way more interesting if all these contradictory stories were just written with contradictions. Probably not necessarily on purpose, but maybe they were just lazy and just didn't really want to make the stories line up 100%. I don't think that was there to probably, or maybe you think otherwise. It was just made to confuse us and
I think
confound us.
certainly with respect to the Bible, they really wanted to plunge people into controversy and arguments. Too many contradictions that can't possibly be accidental. There are too many committees working on it and discussing it.
Kind of like what we're going through with Charlie Kirk. We're arguing all kinds of contradictions. They're endless, aren't they?
Seemingly, yes, seemingly so. And after a while, we will get our fill and move on to other stories.
Oh, there'll be more
Indeed.
stories. All right. Echo Charlie says, very nice show. Thanks to you both. Thank you, Echo Charlie, for listening.
Thank you all.
Tunax, Waco Soto, Indian Summer. And what will we talk about next Sunday?
I gotta do the Pantheon of Rome and Solomon's Temple. Oh, yeah, something else.
All right, that's good. I think an hour is a good length for a show. We can pack it in. I think we did well, and it gives people time to do other things, myself included. I have about 5 movies that people keep recommending. I haven't even watched one whole movie in a long time, so I want to get to some of that stuff too. But it's hard to keep up when you are creating content. So thanks for Peter. And what's your email again?
gmail.com.
Okay, I'll put it in the show notes. If anyone wants to contact Peter, they can. Thanks, everyone. Pete, have a good tutoring session.
Thank you. See you next week.
Take care. Thanks, Prophet of Fiction. There he goes from Mexico. There I go. Fakeologist.com/donate. I don't know if anyone bought a coffee yesterday. I'm going to say no. So if you like this show, you want to see more of this, fakeologist.com/donate. Help us out. Value for value. You pay whatever you think the show is worth. Hopefully it's worth something to you. That would be great. And we will see you tomorrow. We're going to start early, 7:30 tomorrow, because Silas will be here. So the show, it'll be hard to clip that to an hour, but we'll see what we can do. And we definitely can't go too late for his and my sake as well. All right, people. Thanks. Take care. And see you tomorrow.